follow-up on the military spending. On the GI Bill, there is no evidence, by the way, that our soldiers will not re-enlist if they get too many benefits. Our congressmen get plenty of plush benefits, and they re-enlist every 2 years. It's a real issue here because somebody who serves in the military for 3 years and does 2 tours, putting his life on the line in Iraq, don't tell me that person doesn't deserve a level of benefits that still is nothing near approaching the level of benefits. The congressman will be here tonight, as with some of his allies, trying to paint me as somebody who badmouths Republicans, and somehow that's heresy. Well, he's had a good career bad-mouthing, even in the past couple of years. Senator McCain, our presidential nominee. Just this past year, he was at the Republican convention bad-mouthing Republicans in the Assembly and Senate who voted with Democrats to defund Real ID. That's some inconsistency there. We need to be honest about what happened in Washington, folks, because if we don't change the people who are in Washington, nothing's going to change. I've made 3 simple promises. These aren't just Republican values. I think these are American values. We don't spend our children's money. That's an easy one. I will never vote for anything during times of economic growth that isn't paid for. That's a basic core principle. Special interest influence has grown out of control. Too many congressmen, like our own, accept millions of dollars from lobbyists. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in free travel and free gifts from lobbyists. I'm not going to take a single penny. I haven't during this campaign, and I won't. I don't care if it's a free lunch from a lobbyist or from any special interest. Finally, term limits. That's a core Republican principle. If you recall, it was a core principle of the Contract with America, which our congressman signed, a citizen legislature. We need turnover in House of Representatives. I've committed myself to 3 terms maximum in Congress. Those are core values we all share.
Where would you propose the first budget cuts, Dr. Burkee?
Well, interesting question because, you know, the congressman is right in one sense that legislation in Congress is never perfect. In my perfect world, I can tell you what I cut here or there. I'm really a fan, however, of Congressman Paul Ryan's approach to the issue because Washington spending is not going to get out of control or get in control. It's out of control right now, until we do one of a couple of things. And one is simply put a limit on the amount of money we're spending. Now, too many Republicans, and I've got to criticize Republicans because this is a Republican primary. We've got to be honest with ourselves. Too many of us have worked with false numbers. We've falsely thrown out this idea that somehow we're going to balance our budget in 4 or 5 years. It's not going to happen, folks. Paul Ryan, if you look at his roadmap, it's AmericanRoadmap.org, it's an excellent study he's done. Says that even if we make some serious choices over the next several years in Congress, really difficult choices, it might be 80 years before we balance our budget, and then even longer before we start to pay off this massive debt that we're putting on our kids. It is that bad. He's one of the few, what I believe, really authentic, honest Republicans in Washington. I urge you to go take a look at that site. His proposal, which I'm actually very interested in, would essentially limit government growth as a percentage of gross domestic product. I think that's really the way to do it. Rather than saying, let's cut here and cut there, because too often, we'll get members in Congress that'll, throw a ball into us, cut here, and yet continue to raid the Social Security Fund, or continue to put things off budget and hide the real cost of government from us. The honest way to do it is to look at Congressman Ryan's approach. Congressman Ryan's been working, by the way, with the fiscal wake-up tour that was here about a month ago, and took up the entire really editorial page in the Journal. It's an honest approach and one that I wholeheartedly embrace.
Paul Ryan's my friend. I helped him put together this roadmap that he introduced. I think he's on the right track, and he supports me. He was also one that put together the Medicare D law, which has competition in drug plans. Now, I think that he was ahead of the curve on that. because senior citizens were going broke paying for their drugs. And it isn't enough to say, well, we shouldn't have passed it and leaving the senior citizens to have to pay for all of their drugs out of their own pockets. With the competition, the bill has come in lower than the initial cost estimates. And Paul Ryan was responsible for that. And I supported him on that too, because I think he was on the right track. Now, where would I cut first? I'd get rid of earmarks. I've signed a pledge not to support or introduce any earmarks. As pork barrel spending, we get a better break in Wisconsin by working for formula fairness. And I worked with our senators and representatives on a bipartisan basis to change the highway formula so that we now get back $1 from Washington for every dollar we send in. 20 years ago, it was 68 cents on the dollar. And that's a real success story that nobody wants to talk about. But when we get in the earmark game, I can count. We got 8 votes in the House. California has 53. And I know who's going to win that fight. And it ain't going to be us, so we might as well get rid of it.
Next question. This one begins, how do you feel? But since we're Republicans, I'm going to alter it to what do you think about the current tax system in America. And would you be in favor of the abolishment of the IRS, in favor of a national sales tax, or a flat tax? We'll begin with Congressman Sensenbrenner.
Let me say the current tax system stinks. And I remember when Cheryl and I sent our tax return into the IRS and the Wisconsin Department of Revenue, I had to put about $10 worth of postage on the envelope where I send in all of the stuff. I guess I'm kind of a dinosaur because I don't believe in e-filing, because I think it's better that you have it on paper. The only way we're going to get major tax reform is to sunset the tax code on a day certain. And I voted in favor of that. And if that ever passed, that would mean that as of the day certain, there wouldn't be any taxes anymore unless Congress came up with a wholesale revision and a new tax code. The two major things on the table, both of which have pluses and minuses, are the flat tax and the fair tax, which is either a national sales tax or a consumption tax. We need to have a national debate on this issue, but we're not going to get it until we have the sunsetting of the tax code. Now, what I can say is there's precedent for this here in Wisconsin, because in 1995, the Democratic-controlled Wisconsin legislature, maybe it was 1993, passed a bill to abolish welfare in Wisconsin as of a day certain, thinking that Governor Thompson would do the responsible thing and veto it. He did the responsible thing and signed it. And that meant that all the people who wanted to have more welfare had to come up with a welfare program that Tommy would sign, or the people that they claimed to be helping wouldn't get any more whatsoever. Tommy signed W-2. Our welfare rolls went down 90%. We're spending more per welfare recipient and retraining them so that they can get jobs. And we can do the same thing with the taxes if we sunset the tax code, and we ought to do it.